Hi, I'm Stephanie Freeth. I'm a leadership coach, and this week I've been talking to my clients about teams and their performance. And so I wanted to bring this quick video to you as a way to share what I've been learning this week and thinking about. So there's a model called Tuckman's model of team performance, and Bruce Tuckman came up with this in the mid 60s, and it's really helpful to understand the phases that teams go through. And those four phases are forming, storming, norming, and then performing. So a lot of times I think we have these unsaid expectations that teams, when they come together, they're just going to jump straight to performing. And that's not the case. There are stages to go through. Here's a little bit more about what forming looks like. Most teams waste months in the forming stage because they're polite, they're guarded, and they're not really saying what they think. So they might be getting to know each other. They might not want to have conflict and everything feels good. Like, oh, we're coming together. We're a new team. I can't say that yet. I don't want to rock the boat. But that's the forming stage. And forming also doesn't have to mean fumbling. When a team understands each other's motivations, real trust can start from day one. But sometimes uncovering those motivations can take some time. And I have a solution for a quicker way to get at those motivations that can help you get through that forming stage more quickly. The second stage is called storming. This is often when the real parts of the team are coming out. So most teams can get stuck in storming, and it can feel like conflict. It can feel like they're not getting stuff done, and the performance can actually dip before it goes back up. And when teams get stuck in storming, it's why they never reach performing. They get stuck here. They don't know how to move through it. So storming is the stage where trust is either built or it's broken. And you need tools to get through the storming phase a little bit better. The third stage is called norming. This is where alignment happens, but it's also interdependence. Teams learn how to work with each other. They learn to harness each other's strengths. And they learn how to set the guidelines and the rules and the expectations around how they're going to work together. So norming is when teams come together and they establish the ways that they're going to work together and they find true interdependence. They're relying on each other's strengths. They're relying on each other's skills. They're coming together to work as a whole. So norming is where good teams get better, but only if they establish trust. And trust is built in a lot of different key ways, sometimes out of the storming stage to get to the norming. Most teams set ground rules in norming, and the best teams are bringing about understanding. They're really getting to know each other. They're really finding ways that can work for each of the team members so that the good of the whole is optimized. And norming doesn't mean settling. It means building a foundation for performance. It might feel boring to say, like, how are we going to work together? But what I often find is that teams who skip over that and don't establish those expectations early on, they have trouble later. They might retreat back to storming, and they might not ever get to their full level of performing. Performing, this is the stage where high productivity happens. Things are firing on all cylinders, and teams are really getting good work done. They're getting results. They're holding each other mutually accountable. There's cohesion. They're able to work through problems quickly. They have a shared understanding for how they'll work together such that it's flowing. So performing isn't just about skills. Skills are important, but it's also about trust and accountability, which is built in the earlier stages of storming and norming. And high-performing teams aren't born. They're developed. They're built. And each of these stages is crucial to reaching that high performance. There's a way to collapse the timeline and to get to performing much faster. And this is where my Team Enneagram workshop is the fastest way to help teams move through each of these phases to get to performing more quickly and to be able to maintain at that level. And here's why it works. The Enneagram is an ancient system, but it talks about motivations. Why do we do what we do? So when we know our team members' deepest motivations, we know the strengths that they bring, we know their blind spots, then we can work together much more quickly. We don't have to figure that out in the storming session, in the storming part of teams working together. You have a ready to go map that's going to predict, here's how these different types are going to interact interact with each other. So if you have a team of 8, then and it has 6 different types, you're going to be able to see like, oh, okay, in advance, I know how this person's going to interact. I know where conflict's going to come up. And then you have a new language to work through it really on an archetypal human level of this is why humans do what they do. It becomes less personal in a way of like, this person's doing this to me. And then there's blame and then there's judgment and there's conflict. It's the teams that know each other through the lens of the Enneagram can really focus in and appreciate the strengths that their colleagues bring. They can understand when there are blind spots, how to work with those. They can learn to give and receive feedback by type. It's a laser focused way to get through that storming phase that could take months or years, but it's going to get teams to high performance more quickly. Now, it has to be implemented, so you can't just take the awareness and poof, it's magically all happening. And yet the teams that do have this new level of awareness through the Team Enneagram Workshop know how to work with each other. They're skipping the time of fumbling in that storming phase, and they're accelerating that in a way that helps the team. Now, there's always value from storming. Sometimes that tension is used to create new lessons that no other form of conflict can. And yet I find that teams who have the language and the map of the Enneagram in terms of how they work with each other just get to that performance stage so much more quickly. So in the forming stage, many teams start with excitement, but they stay on the surface level. They don't want to rock the boat. They're still getting to know each other. They don't want to say anything controversial. So the shift is when they can understand each other's core motivations and build real trust from day one. And that's why the Enneagram is a map for understanding someone's motivations. Why do they do what they do? It's often based on a core fear and often unconscious, deeply held motivation. And when you can uncover that and understand that from day one, you're able to form trust beyond the surface level, even at the forming stage. So this is why I love to do Team Enneagram workshops when a team is forming, because you put these building blocks in place. You give the teams a new language for how to talk about what's going on, what are their motivations, and it's really important. And it gives you that fast forward in the forming stage to have that foundational level of understanding each other's motivations. So in the storming stage of team formation, it's not a sign of failure. And sometimes you need that push and pull to learn new things, to bring out the best of the team eventually. But what happens is it often feels like misunderstanding. It feels like conflict along the way, and it doesn't always feel good. And teams can really get stuck at this storming phase. So the shift is when teams can see why each person reacts as they do under stress, conflict turns into clarity. And the Enneagram gives you a map for how each archetypal Enneagram type reacts under stress. These are the triggers that come up for someone, and this is the behavior that it looks like on the surface. So when you can see that and anticipate it, and then know when it comes up that it's not personal, that behavior is coming up, it's part of their type structure, you can work with it from curiosity, from compassion. It's a whole new level of being able to work through that storming phase. So in the norming phase, teams are establishing how are they going to work together? What are the ground rules? How are they interdependently working together? Now that could take months of trial and error. And the shift is that the Enneagram collapses that time. It helps teams establish a shared language and a cohesion in days or weeks and not months or years, because they learn to work specifically with each person's strengths and their blind spots and understanding those underlying motivations, so that it's like having a key that you can read someone's personality. Personality is a tricky thing. Why humans do what they do is a tricky thing that we can stay stuck in and can really keep us confused when we don't understand how someone else is thinking differently from us and what motivations is causing that. But when you have the Enneagram in that norming phase, you're able to apply it. You're able to establish ground rules that work for the people in the team. And so that you're really leveraging everybody's strengths. And if they are having a weakness in the team, there's language to be able to talk about that. What is the high side of the type, the expression there, versus the low side of the type? So for example, a type 6 is the loyal skeptic is type 6. They're going to be looking for risk. And so sometimes type 6s need plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Now that can be helpful. And yet there are other times at the low side of the type where the 6 could get stuck in conspiracy theory or could get stuck in really not wanting to make a choice to move forward because they could feel or they could sense and think through what all the different possibilities. But the high side of the 6 is trusting their intuition. Because 6 is actually on the high side when they trust their intuition. They often have done all the work of plan A, plan C, plan D, plan B, so that when they're actually in a crisis, they can really rely on what they've built and tune into and trust their intuition. And that actually can help the team move forward when a 6 is really healthy and moving from that. So in the performing stage, it's not just about working harder. It's about working smarter together, interdependently, using all of the strengths of the team to get something done. If you have a team with all of the same types, you won't have the richness and the depth of perspective that a team that has all different Enneagram types brings to the table. So that performing often really accelerates when every type can be used to its fullest potential. So the shift is really that with fast trust and clear understanding, teams hit high performance sooner and can sustain it longer. And they've built those foundations before in the forming, storming, and norming phase, such that they've worked through a lot of the conflicts and they're really performing to their highest potential. So another thing that I see in working with these 4 stages, storming, forming, norming, and performing, is that different Enneagram types are going to be more or less comfortable in some of these phases. So let's just take the storming phase. When there's tension, when teams are working through, do we want to do it this way? Do we want to do it that way? Or they have different opinions. You might see certain patterns. So for example, we might see that a type 8, the active controller, is going to be really okay with conflict and might be bringing the conflict to the team. And so that can bring tension if other types are moving against that. But a lot of times you might need that 8 energy and that ability to move through and work through conflict. And 8 is probably going to be pretty comfortable in that storming phase. Whereas a 9, the adaptive peacemaker, doesn't like conflict and is going to avoid conflict. And yet 9s can be really great. They are the adaptive peacemaker and they can bring visibility for what all the different types need. They can get those voices on the table. They can bring people together. It can be the glue that holds people together. But if a 9 is really resisting that conflict, then they're not fully bringing all of the strengths that they could to the table. You might also see a 3 could want to move through things really quickly and might get bored being like, we don't have to norm. We don't have to spend time forming. They may want to skip over those steps. So it's just helpful to notice, what are my Enneagram patterns of my type structure and how's that showing up within these stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing? Because each Enneagram type might have a different phase that they're resisting, they're not comfortable in, or other phases where they can really be the one to get the team through that phase and through that phase effectively. Another example, the strict perfectionist, type 1, during the either forming or storming phase, they may have a very definite opinion about how things should be done. Ones will see the world in terms of good, bad, right, wrong, and sometimes they can be opinionated in their perspective, which could be helpful, or maybe they get really rigid around that and they're not listening to other ideas on the team. So none of this is to be judgmental. It's to say, can we use these human archetypal patterns that are coming up in our team members as a way to be like, oh, your pattern's showing up here. What are the strengths of that? What are the unintended consequences of that? And can we work through that? Can we use the pattern itself to help the team perform better? Because in the end, teams are the functional units within companies, within organizations, within societal movements. So whenever there's leadership and there's a team, learning how to function as a team, and then really on a broader society level is so crucial. It's when we're working with teams where we start to see that, hey, everybody doesn't think the same way that I do. And a lot of times we are living in this world to think like, why isn't this person doing this how I would do it? But the Enneagram gives you a new map and a new appreciation for the various ways that people can see the world and therefore the way that they can approach problem solving, which is often coming up on teams. So when teams get good, especially moving through that storming phase to get to performing, then really great things can happen and we can achieve goals. There can be impact. There can be, we can be getting at the purpose that the team is there to work on. And that's the really exciting part versus just the conflict that doesn't feel productive, the conflict that feels like resistance that keeps teams stuck. So that's why I love to bring the Enneagram workshop to teams, because it gives them this new vocabulary, this new way of seeing the world such that they can use it to predict in advance and to diagnose as things are coming up and maybe it's getting tricky. They can see in the Enneagram, how can I move through this? What are the tools and solutions that we can work with? So if any of this is intriguing to you, or if you see your team in one of these stages of forming, storming, performing, or norming, and you want help in getting through that, book your call with me today. If you're thinking about a Team Enneagram workshop, I offer a complimentary diagnostic call where I can hear what you are going through and I can assess whether I think it would be helpful for your team or not. And sometimes it's not a fit, and we look at that together. That's a no obligation call, but book your call today. And I would love to hear what you're going through and whether I would be helpful in supporting your team in moving through these stages of team development.